my name's Robyn. Everyone can hear me okay? Yeah, beautiful. I am going to chat to you about how I teach kids to learn through frustration. I work with kids, as Joe was saying, funded, non-funded, we call them all sorts, which I hate using terms. But at the moment I work in schools. I started in the disability adult centre sector. So I've done a range of kids, basically from the age of 3 to 83 is who I've provided therapy for. But today we'll focus on the kids. So in your little kit that you've got, has everyone got one, hopefully? Yep, beautiful. In your little kit you'll find a crayon, a random fidget toy, a peg, a maths equation, and a feedback post-it. Just on the door there, if you don't mind, one thing that's stuck with you today, if you could just pop it on the post-it, it helps me know what people are enjoying the most. So I'll walk you through that kit, don't worry. And that is what we're going to do today. So I don't know if you could read that, but my education history is quite lengthy. I'm an exercise physiologist. Does anyone know what that is? Oh, yes. They're fantastic. Exercise physiology. We sit between an OT and a physio, and I call it play because kids don't like to call it exercise, but I basically use play to treat the brain. I also have a master's in disability where I majored in autism and communication. I've been in the industry for over 10 years. I have 3 kids of my own. And my biggest achievement this year has been an Australian Women's Weekly finalist for Women of the Future. So I'm a big voice in the disability world, and I advocate for those who don't have a voice. So that's why I love to do so many speaking events. So what you'll learn today is how do we learn a new skill, similar to what Joe was chatting about before. Why do we get frustrated and how can we help with that frustration? Because I'm sure we're getting a lot of frustration at home. And then common movement challenges that we have for kids. So just to give a hands up, how many kids would be around the age from 3 to 8? Beautiful. And then from 8 to 18? Awesome. Oh, we've got a mix. Okay, so I'll try and make it adapt to both. The reason why we ask about the age of 8 is that's when we start to see the gap in school education sometimes get a bit wider. So I have 2 different strategies. So this is why I'm passionate about movement. These are 2 of my 3. On the left we have little Huey. He's a twin. He's the youngest of the twin. And then on the right we have baby Phoebes. Phoebes is 20 months this month. So I'm going to chat to you about why I do what I do. Why I went from adult therapy into children's therapy is from the passion of my own kids. Not many people would know, and the reason why I talk so much is maternal health didn't even pick this up, but my little man Hugh, he laid laterally in my womb. I'm a tiny person, size 8. I had to try and fit 2 kids in this thing. And I had a lateral little baby across the top. He laid sideways while he squashed his sister, who was in breech underneath. What this did for him was delay his whole early first 3 years of development. In my womb, he was unable to turn upside down. In my womb, he was unable to even stand upright. So he lived about 6 months lying sideways. When we lay sideways, we don't practice our rolling. We can't really practice our crawling movements, and we definitely can't practice what we call vestibular balance. We don't know what it feels like to be upside down. Isla had a little bit of a delay, my other twin, because she was breech. She was never upside down. She didn't have room to become upside down, so she spent the last few months completely upright. What that meant for her is her balance was also delayed. Not one maternal health nurse picked up on it. And when I go to see a maternal health nurse, I never say what I do, because as soon as you go in and say, I'm an allied health professional, they think that they can just dismiss you. So I luckily knew that I could do all this therapy for myself, and that's what I've done for the last 5 years. Little Phoebes here. Phoebe, we don't know why, but Phoebe was born into this world not knowing that she had feet. She didn't care about her feet. She was never a baby who sort of tapped her feet together. You know how babies do that? She was never a baby who put her feet in her mouth. She just didn't care about her feet. That's not a problem until you get to 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and 20 months, and you're still not standing, walking how she should be. Luckily, again, no maternal health nurse picked it up. I've just been lucky that I know what to do about it. So a lot of my speaking now is at kindergartens, primary schools and maternal health centres going, get your act together. And the sad part is this isn't part of their professional education. And I wish it would be. So what you learn today, please spread the word because it's so important. Just want to show you a little video here. So I'll go back. If you have a look at Hugh in our little picture, I'll see if I can show you. Just here, he should be at the age of 3.5. He should be swinging forward and back on that swing, and his head should be fluidly moving forward and back with it. He should have a really calm, moving head with his body. He doesn't look relaxed. He looks pretty stiff. What he's doing is he's bracing his head, he's holding his head really still, because if I move my head forward, I feel dizzy, I feel nauseous, and I don't like this feeling because I've never had this feeling in mummy's tummy. And these are the movements that don't get picked up. These are the movements that show this little boy here has a vestibular delay, which is part of his balance troubles. That's at 3.5. He shouldn't have that problem, but he did. Little Phoebe over the left, she can see her. She's not putting her left foot down. Her left foot was her biggest problem, and she doesn't really know that her right foot and her left foot should be flat and it should be in a nice sort of ballet-style position at that age. But then we look at them now, and I'm just going to show you a little video of our little Huey. Here we go, upside down, no freaking out, completely calm. 5. But it takes you repetitive therapy over and over and over again to get him to that point. He's now going to go to school, a confident little boy who has balance, compared to a 3-year-old who was too scared to even move his head in case he felt dizzy. Luckily, I was able to pick it up. Frustrated that the maternal health nurse didn't do their job. Little Phoebe's over here, she's standing, and today she walked for her first time. I cried. 20 months. Well behind in development for what we expect on a beautiful little chart. But she's now standing 2 feet on the ground, and she was able to walk 5 steps today. Repetitive therapy can be done at 8. I do this for kids at 12 if we know what we're dealing with, if we can screen it. So today you get to learn how to screen it. If it goes to the next slide. That way. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how we learn a basic motor skill. Motor skills can be anything. How to use a spoon, how do you hold a pencil, it can be anything. How to jump, how to skip. So what I'm going to do, and if you need a copy of this, please email me and I can send it straight through. You've got a random fidget toy in your bag. You pick him up. Completely random. Beautiful. And you've also got a crayon. So if you pick up, and I can already see people twirling it, typically you'd pick up a crayon and you twirl it in your hands because you know what that is, right? You know what to do with a crayon. So the crayon is moving fluidly, nice and coordinated, because you know what that is. The fidget toy, a lot of you are looking at it, what do I do with this? What is this? It's taking more attention, right? You're giving the fidget toy more attention than what you are the crayon. This is motor development, because motor development happens in 3 stages. Introductory stage, you're looking at this fidget toy, I'm looking at this thing, going, what is this? What do I do with it? My movements are slow. My focus is solely on the thing that I'm not used to. Progression phase would be, I now know what to do with this. My movement gets smoother. I may be able to chat about it at the same time. Mastery phase is you can do whatever you want with it while chatting, while singing a song, while answering a question. The problem with handwriting that Joe is sometimes starting to talk about is what if that was happening with the crayon? You go to pick up a crayon. It's great. Most kids who pick up a crayon know what to do with it. Fantastic. But can they coordinate it? Sorry. And have they mastered this crayon or this pencil enough that when a teacher asks a question or gives an instruction, they can focus on the crayon and the instruction at the same time? Typically, the kids find this really challenging. So we're going to talk about how to help with that. And it's these 3 phases, and it's looking at your kids in what phase they are. A way to figure that out is I give Johnny a pencil, I see what he does with it. If he has to look at it before he uses it, he's still at introductory phase. He's not ready to write off a whiteboard yet, because a whiteboard needs 2 phases. I need to look at the whiteboard, 3 actually. I need to look at the whiteboard, I need to remember the whiteboard, then I have to write. That's a mastery skill for a kid who doesn't know what the pencil's function is yet. So we need to work out where they're at and then go from there. Has anyone heard of working memory? Yeah, anyone had a report and it says working memory? OTs, physios, myself, we throw out this word all the time. Your child has difficulty with executive functioning and working memory. And you read it and go, what is that? I'm going to give you an idea. Adults typically have a working memory of 5 plus or minus 2. I'll help you out with that. 5 things that you're doing right now. You're sitting, you're looking up at my screen, you're reading it, you may be holding a pencil, and you may be taking down notes. That's 5 things, right? Good math? Kids can do 3 or 5 things at the same time. 3 plus or minus 2. So their best day is them being able to just do that. Let me make it a bit more challenging for you. You're hungry, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're anxious, and you hate school. 5 units of your working memory. Your working memory cannot concentrate on that pen if it's hungry, thirsty, tired, anxious and frustrated. The memory just can't do it. And typically, in the kids that I work with, they're fussy eaters. They're not they don't know that food is so nourishing for them. Rarely do I see kids with drink bottles unless they're out in the yard. They're thirsty. Most of them really haven't had a great sleep the night before, electronics, whatever. So how's their working memory going to focus that day? They've only got 5 and they're using most of them already. So whenever you see working memory come up, whenever you see a kid who's really struggling, ask them, are you thirsty? Do you need to go to the toilet? Did you eat today? And if you rule out those 3, you've got a spare few. That's what we want to do with working memory. So, what also happens? You may be in a class and you get given an equation. On your maths equation, if you pull out the little slip that has heaps of numbers on it, so in your little packet there's a slip that has numbers all over it. If you have a look at that, if you quickly go to where it says 12 times 12 equals, and I just want you to put the peg on the right answer. Quite simple. 12 times 12 equals, put the peg on the right answer. Pretty easy, right? Not too bad. We've got it. I had a little boy and he cracked it one day. He snapped his peg. He blamed it on the peg because he got given an equation like this. 1, he doesn't know how to hold a pencil, so how would he be able to manipulate a peg? And 2, he got given an equation like that which was way above a primary school kid for where he was at, and he had to try and do working memory of a peg and hold a card and remember a maths equation. He freaked out. It was the peg's problem, peg's fault, peg broke it, peg ruined my day. If you look at the other equation, you'll actually notice that when you go to put the peg on the piece of paper, so 9 times 9 plus 63, I think it is off the top of my memory, your brain will have more trouble putting that peg on that card because you are challenging the working memory part of your brain more. So when we have these ideas off Pinterest of what we want, and I work with teachers every day, I love teachers, but when we get this idea of Pinterest, of an activity like that, but the kid can't hold a pencil, let alone manipulate a peg, it's just not going to work. What we do instead is we ask them to point, we ask them to say, we still get the same output, but just think about the task. If you want to practice fine motor skills, fantastic. Let's do it without a maths equation. Let's do it in a way that maybe match colours, because colours I can understand, but maths I don't get yet. So we're always trying to think of activities at home that match the exact motor skill that you're trying to achieve. Back to the introductory progression mastery. You'll see over here, we've got little Huey. And again, because of his vestibular troubles, his posture is not where it should be. It's okay, but it's not where it should be. So when he typically writes, both feet aren't flat on the ground because he doesn't really know where his feet are. He's leaning on the table to get some stability in his upper body. So his handwriting is really small. What we do instead is we sit him nice and upright. We give the shoulder room to move. Because if you lean on the table and try and write, your shoulder is restricting how big your letters can be. But if you sit up tall and start to write, your hand and your shoulder has room to move. Kids struggle with this position. iPads, iPhones, I'm guilty of it. I'm a mum of 3. I'd chuck them in front of an iPad today while I was getting ready for this. Breaking it up though, between iPad time, tummy time, gets you into this seated position. Encouraging, like Joe said, to sit in the back of your chair is also helpful. Again, pincer grip. So we all know pincer grip, right? I don't really care about grip either. So I was glad when Joe said, don't worry about grip, we just need them to enjoy handwriting. Some teachers roll their eyes at me. I understand why. But let's start at the introductory phase of just learning how to pinch something first. Let's not worry about pinching a pen or a pencil or a crayon. Let's just start pinching pom-poms and toys and sticks and stones. Get them learning this pinch grip first before you put a pencil in their hand, before you expect them to write a sight word or a sentence. Make the fun of pinching happen first. We're going back to the basics. I work in prep to grade 3 as my focus, and I do take them back to 3-year-old kindergarten level if that is developmentally where they're at. And a kid will do it because I make it look like we're playing a game. But I don't try and give them an 8-year-old handwriting task if they haven't even mastered a 3-year-old pinch exercise yet. You can't jump these steps. You can't go from not being able to pinch to all of a sudden being able to write your name. The brain just doesn't work that way. We then have Isla. This is my oldest twin. And she's in this beautiful wrist extension position. She's holding a tray. I get all my kids, every single kid I play with, to bring me a tray of food or a tray of toys or something for the teddy bears. I ask for a tray. And why do I hold my hand out like this? Because if the worst thing to have for handwriting is this position. When my hand is stuck in this position, I can't move, I can't form beautiful letters. I need my hand to be straight. Now, I'm not a person who goes up and corrects every kid's pincer grip and every kid's wrist extension. That would take me forever. But what I do is every day we play games where we carry trays. We be waiters and waitresses and we carry things around the room with this flat position, because iPad is the opposite. My iPhone is the opposite. So it's this position that will help them with their handwriting. This position that helps with buttons, and this position that helps with knowing how to use a spoon. Because if I can get my wrist to relax, I won't grab onto everything so hard. So lots and lots of tea parties at my house. These are 2 videos, so I'm going to show you. I got Hugh to hold a typical grip that I like to see. And again, he's not in pincer grip. I don't go and ruin his day and pop him into pincer grip. He's colouring in, he loves it. We'll work on that. And if we need to, we'll work on that. But this one is the one I'm concerned with. This is what I call iPad grip. And this is what we're seeing a lot. Huge amount. Can you see the difference? One is like this. I have no control over a pencil when I'm like this. You can see his drawing even becomes quite sloppy when he tries to draw like this. The other one is on the side. How to get from that to that is I use tongs for everything. Pick up little tongs. When you hold tongs on the side. It's hard to hold tongs like this because it falls out. But I turn my hand to the side and I hold tongs on the side. Playing games like crabs on the side, it gets their hand into that right position. If I can take away the stress of handwriting, I can then open their day up to learning something else. And that's my job. If I can get them to do a button, because buttons is sideways, then I've given them the independence that they need. But to do that, I have to get them away from this action and into a sideways action. Breaking it down into tiny steps. Nope, that way, sorry. So difficulties, I don't know if you know any of these. I'll get a show of hands. Has anyone heard of infantile reflexes before? Fine if you haven't. Beautiful, we have some educators here. I love it. Crossing the midline? Yes, in a report, hopefully. Balance, we all know balance. And spatial awareness. Pretty common, lots of head nods, fantastic. So I'm going to start with infantile reflexes. Infantile reflexes, our babies are born that when they come out of the birth canal, preferably the right way up, when they come out of the birth canal, as their head comes down and it turns, their shoulder turns with it. Because I know, having 3 children, I don't want my baby to come out like this, shoulders out. That would be painful, right? So the reflex is that the baby comes out and as the head turns, the shoulder turns. This is fantastic for babies because even what also happens when a baby's on the ground and the head turns, they'll start to learn how to roll. Amazing. But imagine if I'm trying to look at the whiteboard and write, the whole body turns. Every time they look at that whiteboard, their shoulder will turn with their head. Every time they go to follow a ball from left to right, their body will turn with their head. What do they look like? They look uncoordinated, fidgety, and agitated. Because imagine if you were trying to follow me across the stage and your whole body wanted to follow me. It's exhausting. And this is where infantile reflexes come into play. They should be gone by the time a kid gets to school age, but I see it in grade 2, 3, and 4. No fault of anyone's. Well, actually, I like to put it on maternal health nurses, but luckily there's none here today. But this is where our education should be fueling this early development stage when a baby is between the ages of 2 and 4. This is when we can get them ready for school. And it's little things like this that make a difference. So to give you an idea here, all we get our kids to do, and you could do this with your kids at home, any age, we get our kids to be in where Isla is. She's in beautiful cat position. All I tell kids to do is, let's be a cat. And they'll typically get into this position. You then want them to look up. What I'm looking for is that over here, I don't know if this has a fancy thing, you'll see if a child is delayed because the elbows will buckle and the hips will drop. But when Isla's lifted her head, her back stays straight and her hips stay straight. All you have to do is ask a kid to look up. This is a reflex that is great for teaching kids to go from rolling to crawling. But imagine if every time a kid lifts their head up, their whole body wants to crawl, because that's what this reflex is for. This reflex is to get a child to go from crawling to want to take an upright position. Evolution, we're made to do it, but what if they're trying to sit in a class and just look up at a whiteboard? Asymmetrical is the one I was talking about before. We are designed that when we come in, we turn our shoulder. Hugh had this still present only 6 months ago. So when he would write, his whole body would follow his hand. That's exhausting. Imagine writing your name in the sand and your whole body has to move every time you move your hand. We get them to look left and look right. Similar things we're looking for. So in the front position, I always look from the front because I can see more. If the elbows buckle, so they go from straight to bent, or if the hips go, it's still present. I don't really care what age they're at when it's happening because I know that it can be improved. But if they're at school and they're doing this, then we have a problem. Fixable problem, but we have a problem. So all we do with any of these reflexes is we just practice them over and over and over again. We are a cat over and over and over again, and it's a 5-minute sensory break for the whole class to catch these kids up. This one is one that gets left behind. I'm just going to pull a chair out for a sec. The Galant Reflex. And you can find all this, I've left links all over my slides for the ebook. There's more information. So if you see kids, and kids typically with this will be in up to grade 3, and they'll sit on the edge of their chair. And doesn't matter how many times you tell them, bottom at the back, bottom at the back. No, they wriggle their way forward. The reflex that I test is in sitting or on their quadruped on 4. I start at the neck, in the middle of their spine, where you can feel the vertebrae, where you can feel the bony part. I start at the neck and I go all the way down to the bottom. They shouldn't flinch. There's no sensors in that part that would make them flinch, but if they flinch, they still have this reflex. If they still have this reflex, when they go to sit in the back of the chair tickles them. So what do? They get agitated, they get fidgety, and they wriggle forward. This beautiful reflex is designed for that gorgeous little baby over there, that when we're laying on our back as a baby, the floor annoys the spine and the floor makes the baby want to roll. The floor makes the baby want to explore their world, but not a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old doesn't need it anymore. A 5-year-old can walk up and go and get a ball. But this happens when kids still have this reflex. How to get rid of it? Lots and lots of tickling. Every time I go up and I see them, I tickle them along their spine. I get that reflex going over and over and over again until the body realises, I don't need that anymore. I've rolled enough, I've crawled enough. That reflex isn't needed. The brain will prune out that reflex once it gets it enough. The palmar grip, some of you heard of this before? Palmar grip? Yeah, if you work with young kids. So get rid of the chair. So palmar grip is all I do is I get their hands out. Obviously one hand will be a back to front J. You start from the middle finger and you go down to the thumb. And all you do is you just touch them. If their hand grasps you, they still have a present palmar grip. Both hands, if they have a present palmar grip, then they're going to strangle the crap out of that pencil. You'll also see if they strangle a pencil, they're going to write really hard. The pressure on their paper will be really hard and they will be exhausted after just writing their name. Again, the hand is made to write really smooth and freely with an open wrist and a nice loose grip. If they still have their palmar grip, they're going to strangle everything that they hold. Get rid of it by tickling their hand. Tickle their hand with your hand, tickle their hand with different textures. The bow or crawling reflex, I don't know if anyone's heard of this. What we do is, this can also be seen up till grade 3. For a kid, I typically get them on hands and knees. I just put my hand on the bottom of their foot. I don't push it, I just hold it there. And if by putting your hand on the bottom of their foot they move their knee as if to crawl, then they've still got this reflex. Why is this a problem? It means they haven't crawled enough. That's no fault of anyone's, it just means for their brain just hasn't crawled enough. What do we do in the classroom? We tunnel everything. I crawl under tables, I crawl under chairs, I crawl everywhere. Crawling is so important. Crawling has been linked to literacy level. If I can crawl, my brain knows how to coordinate my right and my left hand side at the same time. Crossing the midline, right? If I can't crawl, then when I go to look at the whiteboard and I go to try and move my eyes from left to right, I can't read a whiteboard. I can only read to the middle of my body, and then I have to try and remember it, and then I can read the other half of the whiteboard. All comes back to crawling, all very fixable, just lots of crawling. If we can't crawl, then we do lots and lots of opposite hand to opposite knee to get that body going. You've heard of crossing the midline before? I get a big A3 piece of paper. A3 for a kid's pretty big. I draw 2 lines. Sorry, I've had a cold. I draw 2 lines on the edge of the A3 and I ask them to draw me a rainbow. 8 different times, 8 different colours. I just want to see how they go. What it's testing is, it doesn't matter if they're right-handed or left-handed, it's just testing that the body can go from the one side of their body all the way across the midline to the other side of the body. Same with crawling. I need to be able to do that because I need to be able to read. My eyes need to be able to go across my body. I need to be able to write. I need to be able to write across the page, going across my body. What we're seeing a lot of kids with is this isn't too bad. This is a pretty good result. I like that we've got close. We're getting some that are not even getting across the midline. Why is that? We don't know. I still believe that it's just we don't practice this skill enough. If we practice this skill, we get better and better at it. But we're really concerned about how many kids are having trouble with crossing the midline. So, easy to do. A3 piece of paper, 2 lines, get them to draw a rainbow. Every kid loves to draw a rainbow. And see how you go. It's not about perfection, it's just about doing a big circle. You'll know if your kids are having trouble with this because they'll write really small. Do any kids here write really small? Yeah? So what it basically means is if I only work in one half of my body, once I get to my middle, I'll stop. And then I'll go back to the start. If I'm having trouble crossing the midline, then I'm having trouble completing the whole page. Sort of like how Joe was saying before, you want it left justified, because the body will want to naturally just go to that side. We need to train it to use the whole side of the whole piece of the paper. We need to train it to go nice and big. So rainbows are great. Rainbows in sand, even snow angels on the ground, lots and lots of different things you can do for crossing the midline. The main thing that we want to do is to break down motor skills into small parts. As I was saying before, there's no point giving you a pencil and making you write a sentence if you don't know how to pinch. There's no point getting you to hop on one foot if you don't know how to walk forwards and backwards. It's trying every time we see a child who's challenged, who's struggling, watch them on a swing set. The swing set will show you what's happening with the body. If the swing set's going forward and backward and the head is staying really stuck, then we want to check their balance. If we put them on their tummy on the swing and they refuse to do it or they feel really yucky, we want to check their balance. If we have a kid who's having trouble standing on one foot, and especially when they close their eyes, we want to check inner ear and what's happening with their feet. All these little things that we can do in a playing type manner show us so many big red flags. Red flags that are fixable. I can fix most things with the early development that I do. It's easier when they're 4 and 5 than what they are when they're 10, 11 and 12. My kids haven't got a self-esteem attached yet. Hugh, who has trouble standing on one foot, isn't comparing himself to his friends yet. So he's going to be more likely to try things and fail and try things again. But a 12-year-old has more difficulty with that. Doesn't matter, we get to a 12-year-old, we show that, oops, I fall over, I can't do it, try again. We can do it, but imagine what we could do when they're 4 and 5. So we're all still awake, we're doing okay? Beautiful. What I just want everyone to do is, if you have an issue with development, we want to practice that exact phase. If it's pincer grip, go back to pinching. If it's taking notes, so working memory, if we're looking up at the whiteboard and we're having trouble coming back down and remembering what we need to write on paper, try and teach them how to remember short bits. Try and teach them how to look at where they're stopping each time. You sit in their chair and realise where they're stopping and not being able to do it. If you go to take your kids to the supermarket and they can only remember 1 or 2 things on the list you've given them, keep doing that with success and then chuck a 3rd one in there. If they can't remember 3 things when they go to the supermarket, teach them how to write lists. Give them those skills that are coping strategies for whatever challenge they're having, but don't give up on the opportunity to keep practicing. The brain won't learn these skills if it doesn't keep practicing. So if I have a kid who's struggling to do their shoelaces up, if I do it for them every time, their hands and their feet have learnt nothing. Mine have. I'm getting great at tying kids' shoelaces. But if you can at least, I understand in the morning I have 3 kids, I've got to get them out by 8:30. But if you could ask the teacher that one of their ILPs, one of their learning plans is for them to tie their shoes, then you know that every day someone is working on that skill with them to help them learn how to tie their shoes. And an ILP, please, if you are writing them and you're a part of them, they can have all these independent living skills. It doesn't just have to be about maths and literacy. So I think, doing good. Do you have any questions at all?